Welcome, St. John's. Today we take a closer look at the women who resisted in order to save the life of Moses. Through the stories of these women, how are we inspired to resist no matter how small and insignificant the act may be? Well, before we get started, here are just a few announcements. Mark your calendars for our Labor Day picnic right after worship at Mountain Lake Park, right off of 11th Avenue. It'll be a fun time. We're going to share some food and games and fellowship. Bring a dish to share if you would like. On September 15th, we're going to the Giants game, so get your tickets for around $27. This will probably be the last time we are announcing this because the deadline is coming up on August 16th, and you can go on our website to find out how to get those tickets. And as school is about to start, for so many of our Kids Corner for kindergarten up to 5th grade is also starting in September, and we're looking for volunteers to help out. It really just involves reading a Bible story and leading an activity. All the supplies and instructions are provided. It's pretty simple, so let me know if you are interested. And again, thank you for your ongoing generosity. Really, your financial support to St. John's helps us to find ways and discover ways to really be a light in our neighborhood. And so we're grateful for all the ways that you give, including prayer. So if you have a prayer request, send that in. Also, if you want to join our prayer team and receive those prayers so you know what's going on the hearts and the minds of our neighbors and this faith community, you can sign up on our website as well. Well, today our stories of these brave women comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 2. Listen to today's word. Now a man from Levi's household married a Levite woman, and the woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She saw that the baby was healthy and beautiful, so she hid him for 3 months. And when she couldn't hide him any longer, she took a reed basket and sealed it up with black tar. She put the child in the basket and set the basket among the reeds at the riverbank. The baby's older sister stood watch nearby to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the river, and while her women servants walked along beside the river, she saw the basket among the reeds, and she sent one of her servants to bring it to her. When she opened it, she saw the child. The boy was crying, and she felt sorry for him. She said, "This must be one of the Hebrews' children." Then the baby's sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Would you like me to go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter agreed. "Yes, do that." So the girl went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I'll pay you for your work." So the woman took the child and nursed it. After the child had grown up, she brought him back to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her son. She named him Moses because she said, "I pulled him out of the water." This is the word of God. Thanks be to God. So have you all been watching the Summer Olympics? I have to admit, I have been just in absolute awe of the women's gymnastics, and especially Simone Biles, remembering what happened at the last Olympics in Tokyo. And here's a woman who experienced a lot of trauma and abuse in her childhood, a woman who carries the expectations and pressures of the world on her shoulders, as well as the hopes and dreams of young ones who look up to her. To watch her come back with such force, confidence, and joy has been infectious to watch. In order to deal with all that she faces, she speaks candidly about the lengths she goes to in order to be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually strong to compete. One of those things is daily looking at her tattoo, reminding her of how strong she is. So near her collarbone are the words, "Still I rise," from Maya Angelou's poem. These 3 words remind her that even though the moment is difficult, she will get through it like she has before, and she will find a way to persist and resist. In doing so, she carries the women and the people who have supported her, and she does the same to her fellow teammates as well as fellow competitors from other countries. I mean, this picture is an example of that, where she is giving the respect to her competitor, the competitor that deserves it and has earned it, as well as celebrating 3 Black women on the podium. Well, today we read about the birth of Moses. We often preach about Moses, this man born of humble beginnings, yet raised in the most powerful household. And rather than choosing to live an entitled and privileged life, he makes a choice that caused him to be an outcast from his adopted family and country. He becomes a sheep herder and is known to have a slow mouth and a thick tongue. Yet it is this man who resists the powers that be and accepts the call, although reluctantly, to lead the single largest rescue operation in the entire Bible. Moses and God's people are living in a world where they must serve the occupiers of their time. Moses' people are working for a Pharaoh whose economic appetite is insatiable. They are forced to work day and night to meet the demands of the Pharaoh. And this is contrary to the rhythm of God, who worked 6 days and rested on the seventh. Their world demands allegiance to the occupier and nothing else. However, by choosing to follow God, Moses has chosen his allegiance. They have chosen God's rule, which is in direct opposition to the worldly values they are living in. Their lives are no longer defined by worldly values. They resist at the risk of their whole being to embrace the freedom that is offered by God. But all of this whole story that we hear about time and time again, could not be made possible without a certain group of women. Within Moses' life, he holds a history of countless women who resisted Pharaoh's power and threat. It begins with the midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, who disobeyed his order to kill baby boys born to Hebrew women. And it continued when Moses' own mother, Jochebed, disobeyed when the Pharaoh ordered all Hebrew baby boys to be thrown in the Nile River. She sheltered him for 3 months before putting Moses in a basket down the very river he was supposed to be thrown in. Then Moses' older sister Miriam resisted by keeping protective watch over Moses while the basket floated down the river and into the hands of the Pharaoh's daughter. And even the Pharaoh's own daughter betrayed him by taking in Moses as her own and raising him under the household of the Pharaoh. Stories of resistance were already a part of Moses' life. For him to continue on that resistance was simply living out a legacy already begun. God calls Moses to draw nerve and strength from his name, which means to pull out of the water. His very name holds the work of resistance that Moses is being called to. The difference is Moses does not only have to rely on his name, but the name of the one who sends him. I am who I am. I will be who I will be. These women teach us the act of resistance is not a solo act. It's a group project. We stand here because of the many who have resisted before us. Even if the women didn't realize they were working together, it took all of them to save Moses' life. The other thing we learn is that acts of resistance don't have to be grand acts. Each woman did a little part, not knowing how their act would affect another. But rest assured that if one of the women chose not to act, there would be no choice later down the road for another. What this means for us is that we are called to acts of resistance. It means we are to hold an alternative point of view to what the world advertises. Merely by being present, being true to ourselves, being true to who God is, and making space for others to speak and be heard. And I know it's not easy. It's impossible not to do a cost analysis on what the risk is. The cost of our self-confidence. Am I capable or strong enough, smart enough? What if this hurts the relationships of people I love, respect, and rely on? What if this means I have to take a real good look at myself or the way I perceive the world? And can I give that up? But by not doing so, we may risk not knowing the ways that God's love and justice resonates with the world, when our actions are the very response the world has been calling for. We have encountered a resonance that surpasses all the risk and recalibrates our behavior so that whether it is necessary or not, we are willing to risk it all. Not because of what it will cost us, but because of what it will cost the other if we don't. Parker Palmer says, we arrive in the world with birthright's gifts. Then we spend the first half of our lives abandoning them or letting others persuade us that they aren't worthwhile. However, here on holy ground, God tells us otherwise. Let us not let the words of the world prohibit us from responding to the cries of the world, for it requires nothing but our willingness to be vulnerable and open to who we are and where God is calling. I believe that is why the words of Maya Angelou's poem, Still I Rise, still resonate generation after generation. There's truth in these words that resonate deeply with the life we have experienced. Words of survival, hope, perseverance, and resistance. These words connect us to a personal experience of loss and trauma that Maya Angelou went through and was triggered after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Her words are birthed from a wisdom that says, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, the encountering may be the very experience which creates the vitality and the power to endure." Therefore, this poem is meant to be a call and response, because again, the act of resistance is not a solo act. I invite you, as I read this poem, to join me in the bold italicized words. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard? 'Cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. May we have the courage to resist, no matter how small and insignificant the act may seem. Because the story isn't over, we pick up where it was left off. Rachel Holt Evans says, "What I love about the Bible is the story isn't over. There are still prophets in our midst. There are still dragons and beasts. It might not look like it, but the resistance is winning." Remember Miriam, Moses' sister. It turns out that it isn't the last we hear of her. She reappears in chapter 15 when the brother she helped save leads God's people through the Red Sea. After successfully crossing it, it says, "Then the prophet Miriam, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand. All the women followed her, playing tambourines and dancing." I look forward to seeing you in the further chapters of your life and my life, because who knows, we might find ourselves standing on holy ground, and what makes it holy is not the location, but the one who calls us at unexpected times and unexpected places. One thing is for sure, we are never called alone, but in a community that encompasses all the beauty, all the diversity of who God is. So go with the God who calls you. Go with Jesus Christ, who has shown us what true acts of resistance are, and the Spirit who girds us, who strengthens us, and who unites us together, because it is a group project. Be with you as you go about your week. Go in peace.